Aloha. Welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii's Behind the Scenes and Beyond the Talk. Today we are honored to have Brandon Hayashi with us here, and we will be getting into all kinds of interesting things in this hour. I'm very excited. He's got his hands in all kinds of interesting, different, and new things, and so welcome.
Thank you.
So, the name of your talk this year was The Light Becomes the Dark. What was it?
The light side of dark.
Yes, The Light Side of Dark,
Yes.
yeah. So how was that experience?
Oh, it was fantastic. I've never been, obviously, a participant in a TEDx talk. And while I've seen a lot of TED videos online, being a part of it, obviously, is significantly different. The energy was flowing. Obviously, you have your butterflies in your stomach before you go on. But I think one of the things that was really helpful, obviously, is preparation. Having a speaker coach and really working through things. I think I calculated something in the neighborhood of about 100 hours of scripting, practicing, going in front of the others. So it was a really good experience. And I think I even bought a book called, Learn to Talk Like TED.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was actually
Neat.
really good advice.
Wow, that's great. I'll have to
Yeah.
check that out. That's cool.
Yeah, but that helped a lot of it. It was all about framing, I think, making sure, obviously, you know what you're talking about, but putting out to the audience in a way that is interesting and has enough information, enough level of detail, but not putting them to sleep at the same time. Because my talk obviously had some science in it, and our speaker coach, for example, was saying that's great, but perhaps it's not relevant for this audience. So it really made me rethink a lot of things and reframe things, which I thought was really useful.
Yeah, well, that must be hard anyway, to try to fit all this information and knowledge you have on a subject, and probably other subjects that kind of, seep through, and there's some crossover, and you try to make it succinct enough to fit in that, I think 19 minutes, but also have enough information to engage people and to want them to look into it afterward, or to, ask questions themselves, and actually, be excited about your talk and take it a step further.
Definitely. I have to actually admit something.
Okay.
When we do our things, as you know, as you're a part of the TEDx machine, really, here in Honolulu, is we have time limits that we're supposed to stick to. And technically, I was supposed to speak in 15 minutes, but I couldn't squeeze it in. And so I did go overboard.
Well, no one noticed. It was really engaging, seriously.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
I was really impressed with your talk. So mostly the light side of dark, and one of your quotes I really enjoyed was getting a better tonight so you can have a better tomorrow. Something,
Yes.
am I right about
Yeah,
that?
no, you got good memory.
And that kind of is speaks to what you were talking about.
Absolutely.
A little bit.
Absolutely. I think you've hit it right on the nose. The whole talk really was about sleep science and how light impacts our sleep. And it's interesting because a lot of the data, at least that I've seen, is basically showing that by making sure that you have good sleep tonight, you can see immediate positive impacts the next day. And there's not many things in life that we can do that have that quick of an impact or effect.
So true.
Yeah, at least in positive. There's a lot of things you can do that have a negative impact immediately. But
Yeah,
the opposite is
the Yeah, that's a good point.
So it was really exciting to kind of find this. There's a lot of things that you search online, like life hack. I think it's lifehacker.com and things. There's a lot of stuff out there, but this is one of those things that I think has been scientifically proven to have such a huge impact. And it's one of those things I think everyone should learn a little bit more about, in my humble opinion.
I do agree. And it's so basic, kind of. I mean, the fundamental concept is basic, really, sleep and light. And it gets way more technical, as I know that you've spent years, so I don't mean to make your topic simple. It certainly is not.
No.
But you can go very deep with it. But it's just such a simple practice. Just kind of adjusting a few things, and if you can improve your life that much just by making a few small improvements the night before, and your day, you don't have to worry about pills or any coffee or all these other things people are pumping into their bodies to try to regulate themselves, when you can do it your own.
Yep, absolutely. No, it was digging into this, and the TEDx experience was just phenomenal, because I think there are certain things when you stumble upon things, you want to share it, right?
Right.
You want to not hold on to it, but really kind of spread the aloha of what is out there. And this was one of those things, you know, because I'm not an expert. I'm not a neuroscientist in this area, or not a neuroscientist, period, but I'm not an expert like those who have spent literally decades studying this. You know, there are many others, and there are some really good TED Talks, not TEDx, but actual TED Talks that speak directly into years of research that these neuroscientists have done. And but stumbling upon this and digging into it was almost like doing a mini dissertation.
Right.
You know, getting into this, getting really excited, and then it just so happened the timing was such that the applications were being called for TEDx right at the time when I was getting into this.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not like I had plans to talk on TED at all. It was all about timing, right? Life sometimes works out that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So were you, the TED experience, was it what you thought it would be, or?
You know, I tried not to have any expectations because I really didn't know what it was gonna be
Right.
like. So I think the main thing for me was preparation was really key. So practice, get as much feedback from professional speakers, from the mentors, right? Joe Cardiello was
Yeah,
our
that's
speaker
so
coach.
great. I didn't even realize that until this year that we had a speaker coach. It seems like a really helpful tool.
I will definitely say I agree with that.
Really?
Big help. And then I think importantly, and this is one of the things that Joe and others had shared as well too, is get in front of as many people as possible. Just practice and practice till you're not reading or trying to memorize rote lines. You're living it, you're speaking it, and it comes off natural. So it's not like you got to turn yourself on to be I'm in presentation form, but more about this is who you are, this is your interest, this is your passion, this is what you know, sort of a approach. So I think it's definitely helped speaking. I practice in front of family members, co-workers, just other people, friends, and everything.
Right.
It really made a difference.
That's great, especially
Yeah.
because it was kind of a new subject to you, which no one
Relatively
could tell.
speaking, yeah.
So, what are some of your favorite TED Talks that maybe along this line or any of TED Talks that
Sure. Specifically related to the subject matter that I spoke about, there's a British professor. His name is Dr. Russell Foster, and he had I think it was also a 19-minute presentation, and I was just flabbergasted by the amount of information one can pile into 19 minutes. And so that was also inspirational, like, hey,
Right.
if he can do it, maybe I can do it. Not guaranteed, but I think I have a good
Right.
shot. And so it was great to see all of the information that he put out there. And he actually is a neuroscientist and really at the front of the pack as far as studying this type of sleep science and
Okay.
circadian rhythms. So that was a great talk to see. But as you know, TED is so broad in
I
what they actually
know.
cover.
And
So
then, yeah,
you could go
watch
on and
one and
on.
then you're like, oh yeah, maybe I'll check out what, they say something that you don't know a lot about in their talk, and then you go and look that up, and there's a talk about that, and then it's endless.
It
or
is
can
that
be.
going down the rabbit hole,
It is.
right? It is an epitome of what the internet, I think,
Yeah.
is. Right? Just go straight down.
It's true.
But no, I mean, because I've signed up. I've been a huge fan of TED.com for a long time. So I get the Saturday emails that tell you this is what's trending this week.
Right.
So I try to carve out time, if not on Saturday, at least some point during the weekend, to listen to a couple of those that are really sparking interest, whether it be on the bio of the speaker. The title obviously is one of those things that can catch
Right.
you, and their subject matter. But was also interesting too, I think this happened maybe a couple years ago, TED started to act and use its big data and start to curate around content. I remember in the very beginning, I don't know about the very beginning, but several years ago, they had it around motivation, inspiration, funny, all these different types of things. And then they started to have things I remember coming out in the email where it'd be like, if you have 60 minutes and you want to learn about love, click on these 4 talks or whatever.
Right.
They'll line up for you. How much time do you have? What's your subject matter interest? What kind of things are you looking for? And they'll kind of curate and put this for you. And it was just a fascinating way to use 60 minutes. For example, if you're driving or you're washing the dishes
Right.
or whatever the case may be. So that part I found really useful because, well, it's dangerous because you can go down the rabbit hole. You go from
Right.
love to
Right. Intimacy.
anywhere.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, they've done a phenomenal job, and I think it was in spring of this year. That's when Monica Lewinsky was one of the speakers on the the TED.com
okay.
TED Talk, and it was just really interesting to hear her talk and how she had spoken, for example, about being essentially patient zero or at ground zero for internet bullying. right? It was right at that stage when the whole
Ah.
Monica Gay, Lewinsky
That's a good
situation came out. So it
point.
was really interesting hearing her perspective and how she kind of transformed from being a victim to an advocate, right? And there are a number of these talks. I remember listening to another, she was a Muslim woman talking about rights in the Arab world and how, you know, certain groups within Islam use the Quran to hold women back, when in actuality, history has it that many Muslim women were actually leaders in their own right and in their own time and respected by men, hundreds, if not over 1,000 years ago. So it's really interesting to hear all the things that are happening, you know, that TED or TEDx is covering around the world.
Yeah, that is interesting, and I think it's good to note that that there is that Saturday email that goes out to tell people what's trending, and you know, trending is just a fancy word for those of us out there who don't know what, you know, well, I guess everyone knows what trending is, but you know, it's just what's going on nowadays. Because
Yeah.
if you don't watch a lot of TV or get the newspaper or something like that, you don't know what's going on, but you can kind of see and get little bits of, you know, what's going on and the way people think, and so.
Yeah, yeah. I would say another resource that is really useful, again, more from a curating perspective, is I'm a huge fan of National Public Radio. So I believe it's on Saturdays, I want to say around noon, that they have the NPR hour of TED, right? So they have a host and he has a theme and he pulls in snippets from the actual TED Talks themselves, but then also interviews the speakers. So kind of, if you will, something like this, like, okay, here's your TED Talk, but was there something else you want to add? Or this is brought and themed with this speaker as well.
That's
So there's a
fascinating.
really great way. And
So,
again,
like,
60 minutes, amazing amount of information.
That's great. So, like, I would, as the curator or the host, pick some parts of your talk or some other talk and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then you would talk about that and maybe go off a little bit that
Right.
you didn't get to talk about on your talk.
Right. And then maybe you would call Dr. Russell
to see
Foster
if-
in the UK and say, and there's
neat.
this combination here, and this is what's happening in
Right.
this part of the world. And so it's fascinating.
That is
Yeah.
fascinating.
It just makes our world, which we know already is shrinking, that much smaller in a positive
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks for mentioning that, because I do listen to NPR as well, but I wasn't, and I think I've stumbled upon that once, but I didn't realize that every Saturday they do kind of a TED hour, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so was there anything that surprised you about TEDx Honolulu, or any of the speakers or the format, or was there anything that is of special note to you, or stands out to you in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say anything surprised me in a negative way. I think there was just, again, I think to me, the real benefit of being there, somehow a part of it, is the energy that flows there. You know, there's a lot of excitement. Obviously, people that are coming there are there either because they're supporting someone or they just want to just sheer interest in learning.
Right.
Right? We had, what, 12 speakers, right, if I'm not mistaken, and everyone was different.
So different, yeah?
Right? The speaking styles, subject matter of expertise, life experiences. You know, I think back to, for example, the women who talked about their experience after coming out. I think minimum they were at least each 10 years incarcerated, right?
Right.
And the challenges that they're facing and everything. I mean, it's moving. I don't know how you can't not be moved
Right,
by those kind of
exactly.
talks. You know, I had the opportunity and the pleasure really to sit down with a couple of them because we did some pre-TEDx things, and we used our office space as some of the filming. I think some of it ran on Olelo.
Oh,
prior
right,
to, the
yeah.
event. And so because we're using our office space, I had a chance to talk to some of the folks, and they happened to be one where I didn't have a meeting, so I had a chance to kind of talk story with them, and they were just fascinating. And when you learn someone's life story and you're not judging them by the outside of what you think
Exactly.
they do or had done, it's a total different level of understanding.
Yeah.
Humanity and individual humans as a whole.
Exactly, and that backstory. Speaking of backstories, we're going to get into yours when we get back from this break. And to you out there, if you'd like to send us a tweet or with a question or comment, please do so at ThinkTech High.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina. president of the Grassroot Institute, and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii broadcast network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right and what's good and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
It's fascinating. We're back here with Brandon Hayashi. So glad to have you. And just been learning so much about sleep cycles and circadian rhythms and all kinds of things that help you be more productive and all around better. So if you could please go into a little bit for those of us or those out there who didn't have the opportunity to see your talk, although they can look it up on YouTube or Tedx Honolulu, Brandon Hayashi, The Light Side of Dark. So I definitely recommend to check it out. But if you would just go into a little bit about what your talk was.
Sure. I guess what I could do to kind of set it up and frame it properly is how I got interested in it. And then I can kind of get into some of the science behind it. So basically, it was just through actually a former coworker of mine who had kind of shared some information about what is happening in the lighting industry and how important it is in our day and in our night. And so it was basically from that kind of nudging and that, hey, I think you'd be interested in this kind of a thing, it turned into almost an obsessive passion for a little bit of time there. And that's when I really started to dig into things. But essentially what I was digging into in the talk was really a broad-based kind of explanation of is the neuroscience behind how our eyes take in the light, how that signal is sent to our brain, and how that brain controls things in our body. So you mentioned circadian rhythms, right? Which is essentially our 24-hour clock. And so all those functions that our brain controls, our hormones, our multitude of functions, right? When our body essentially shuts off our bowel movement capabilities, when we have the highest blood pressure, all those sorts of rhythms that happen. And so I originally started looking at light specifically, and then it showed me really the bigger picture of what the neuroscience is behind why light, artificial light, is so important to our day. And so I guess from there, what I can talk about really is how our eyes see it, how our brain interprets it, and what happens. So basically, we've evolved like any other organism in our environment. And our environment for the longest period of time was completely based upon when the sun rose and the sun set. So we did all of our productive things during the daytime, and until Homo sapiens or their predecessors had discovered fire, that was it. When the sun set, lights literally were out, and there's only about one or two things you can do when the light is dark, right?
Right.
So basically that was how we existed for a long period of time. And when fire came, obviously it changed things, but we were still very much animals that operated in the day. And as things went by, we're talking obviously thousands upon thousands of years, and fire was still our main form of light during the night, our eyes obviously started to understand that this, for example, this color, the more reddish, orangish, yellowish type of light that you see in a flame, was something that didn't impact us at night in a way in which we would think that it's daytime. And I'll get back to that in a moment.
Okay.
But basically during the day, the way it all works is that we have these small number of cells on our retina. So the acronym is IPRGC. And what it stands for is Intrinsically Photosensitive Retinal Ganglion Cell. So in our retina, we have a bunch of these ganglion cells, and they do a ton of different things. But there's these special IPRGCs that are less than 1% of all these retinal ganglion cells that are just that, intrinsically photosensitive. They're inherently sensitive to light. And so they are an ancient cell in our eyes that basically just tell whether it's night or it's day. And because these are an ancient cell, they're broad-based in the sense that you don't need to look directly into the eyes to get it. The light could be coming from the side, underneath, above, which is why when you have these types of glasses...
And this is why it's wrapped around.
Exactly.
We'll get more into these shortly.
So it's not just what's coming directly in front of you. And you know, there are so many things from our fight or flight and our hunter-gatherer days when we had to immediately be able to make decisions based on information coming from a multitude of areas. This light would essentially, or these cells rather, the IPRGCs, would then tell our, what's called our suprachiasmatic nuclei, or SCN, that's our 24-hour clock.
Oh, okay.
That would be the main input. Okay, guys, it's daytime. Or hey, the sun's gone down, it's nighttime. And then based upon the input that was given from the eye to our 24-hour clock, that would then control bodily function. And a big part of this is our pineal gland, which basically produces and secretes hormones, important hormones such as melatonin. And without melatonin, our bodies can't properly rest. And if we can't properly rest, I'm sure you've had some all-nighters, huge detrimental impacts, right, the following day. And the reverse is also true, which goes back to our whole point that a good sleep tonight leads to a better tomorrow. And so that's, in a nutshell, at the very 30,000-foot level, is why light is so important. We evolved within our environment that we operate ourselves around the 24-hour dark light cycle. And then all of a sudden comes Thomas Edison and the introduction of artificial electric light, and it totally changes the way we live, work, and play. And so that fundamentally is a part of, you could call it a problem, certainly an issue that we need to address. It's no longer allowing us to operate how we used to for, I mean, again, depending upon how far you go back, you could argue millions of years. We evolved in a particular environment, and that environment no longer stands, at least not in the developed world, because there are lights on 24/7, right? Whether it be at Walmart, in the middle of New York City, or certainly here in Honolulu, street lights, everything. So that is what my talk was really all about, is our light, how it impacts us at night and during the day, artificial and natural light.
Okay, so you know how they have all these different light bulbs out there now? Are
Yeah.
some better than others in terms of helping your circadian rhythms? And
Absolutely.
I used to always say I was allergic to fluorescent light, but is fluorescent light worse for you?
Some people have a light sensitivity, and others, you might know some people, for example, that under fluorescent light, they develop headaches, migraines, and it just really bothers them. There's a frequency in light, particularly in T8, or fluorescent tubular light, right? That it's actually a little bit of a buzzing or a ringing sound that you can actually hear. And so the frequency actually is what causes problems oftentimes for a lot of people.
Really?
But some people actually do have a light sensitivity where it's actually the type of light that causes problems from learning, from operating what we would normally call normal, right?
Right.
So yes, there is definitely, to answer your question, a full range of light bulbs, light fixtures, and everything out there in the market. And again, for purposes of nighttime light, there absolutely is a difference of what would be good for a health or productivity or sleep perspective versus a security perspective. And this is why there's always trade-offs in life, right? So for example, I'm sure you know of a lot of places, and I'm blanking on a place I can actually pinpoint to here in Honolulu, but they could be at schools, they could certainly certain types of street lights, exterior lights. It's that orangish hue, or what the industry would call low pressure sodium or high pressure sodium lights.
Okay.
And when you're talking from a security standpoint, if you have a camera, the light almost looks like this. It's like that orange
Right,
glow,
yeah, I've
right?
seen those.
If you have a security camera on and that's your only source of light at night, you can't make out what color of clothing the person is wearing.
Oh.
You can barely see there. Everything is almost like brown in
Right.
color. So for example, if someone breaks into a place and this is your light, you can't say what color hair they have. You can't say what color clothing they have, what kind of color hat they had on. None of that is applicable because you just can't discern the color, right? Now, if you go ahead and put light emitting diodes or LEDs in, you will have this really bright blue-white light that will allow you to see the full spectrum. It's a red and blue cap that he has. It's sandy brown hair, blue eyes, green shirt. I mean, it's very, very crisp and clean, but it is that blue-white light is the very problem as far as sleep is concerned.
Really?
Because that blue-white light, whether it be 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 Kelvin, which is a form of measuring color temperature and light, that's the exact light that is meant to essentially come closer to natural daylight. So when you have something that's mimicking natural daylight in the middle of night, that's inherently the problem that we're talking about.
Right.
So then we have to juxtapose safety and security against our own natural circadian rhythm, right? So this is where, again, we always have to make decisions in life, right? It's always about choices and everything. But there's a time for something like that and a place for something like that, and that would be exterior lights, for example.
Yeah, for security, I can see, but.
But if that seeps in or sneaks into the interior, whether it be a window or something else, or you put LEDs in your house, and by the way, they're super efficient, which is great on a whole nother financial and technical level, right? But if you have that in your house, that blue-white light in your house, and that's your main source of light after the sun sets, you brought in that light into your dark space when really you shouldn't be.
Right.
You actually want something that's on a lower Kelvin color temperature scale to, again, mimic what fire looks like at night, because your eyes have adjusted to that, in essence, over our evolution. So bright blue-white light, right, that you're gonna get at that higher color temperature, great for certain things. This is really good for our own health, our own sleep, and our own productivity.
So I'd like to get into this. One of the cool things about your talk was you had, was it every, because I know you said 1 in 3.
Yeah, it was about 1 in 3 or 1 in 4.
It wasn't 1 in 3. Okay,
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
you're good. Okay, so he had these glasses taped under 1 in 3 or 4 chairs, which, what is that statistic? 1 in 3 or 4 people doesn't get a good sleep because of the...
Right. So I believe the statistic is that essentially, at least I believe in the developed world, is that 1 in every 3 of us at some point in our life will develop a sleep disorder.
That is staggering. But one of the things that you can do to combat that is he put these glasses under the chairs. And so you wear these when the sun sets, then you wear these glasses.
Until you go to sleep, essentially.
Until you go to sleep.
Yeah.
So would there be a filter or something like this that you could put over your lights at home, whereas then everyone could, you know, you kind of use that, I don't know, it just seems like it would be easier to remember. Is there something like that?
Right, so there are a number of ways in which you can create essentially that same filter that you have in front of your eyes with those pair of glasses. So from your devices, you can put filters on. There's apps you can download and so forth, right? Obviously, you could wear these when you're watching TV and mitigate out the blue light that's coming from the screen. There's also different types of lights that you can get. The lighting industry itself is moving toward what lots of people actually are calling human-centric lighting. So the color temperature that we talked about, right? It would be able to produce this color temperature, let's say 2700 Kelvin at nighttime, and yet you could control it so that in the middle of the daytime, it's mimicking natural light at, say, 6500 Kelvin.
Nice.
So it would change. You could have it essentially timed with the sunlight and dark, so that when you come home, say, for example, 6 o'clock in the middle of winter, and there's no sun whatsoever, sunset, you know, a while ago, that house that you have interior that has these lights would be set already to the kind of lights that would be, again, closer mimicking to what maybe fire would look like. Yeah.
Nice. That's great.
There was a cool Wall Street Journal article that talked about, they kind of showed what a house would look like. Here's what it looks like during the day. Here's what it looks like at night. And they talked about the controls that enable that to happen and everything. Yeah, so it's definitely getting more mainstream as light emitting diodes or LED lights become more mainstream themselves.
Right. Well, that's good. At least there are people looking into the effects of that because, you know, often in life when there's something good, you also, you know, have that other side, the dark side to the light.
Right.
Yes. So, but these, I just wanted to say that what a big difference they made in my sleep because I was lucky enough to get a pair of these and I wear them in the evening and when I can tell when I'm out or, you know, I don't have them and I haven't done it, the next day, I can tell a difference. So I would love one of those sleep thing, you know, kind of measures your sleep to see how long you're in REM and stuff like that and kind of do my own little research with these glasses to just prove my theory correct. But I just think it's such a great idea. And so what part of your research brought you to this? Yeah,
so obviously once you identify a problem, you can't stop there.
Right.
You gotta look for solutions. Right, or at least that's how you have to,
right.
in my humble opinion. So as you start to dig into this, you start to see that people feel the same way too. And so they're starting to look for solutions and create solutions. And there, for example, there are a couple of professors who essentially after retiring from university life, created their own company all around this type of technology, or this is really low tech. I mean, it's glasses at the end of the day, right? And they're not the only ones. There are a number of, again, app builders and everything who have created things specifically to mitigate out the blue light from our night. And this was just one of the things I stumbled upon. So I'm not trying to push any type of brand or anything like that. I got
But
these
any
essentially
blue blocker.
on Amazon for $7.99.
Wow.
Yeah. Any blue light mitigating glasses would work. The main, again, purpose of these being great is that these are PPEs. These are personal protective equipment, which is why they block out above,
Right,
the sides,
everywhere.
and below.
Yeah.
Because that's what a worker
And they're
would-
super comfortable too.
Yeah, they're comfortable. And this is what a worker would, if you're working on a manufacturing line, this is the kind of stuff you'd be wearing.
Right.
And this is hopefully what, it's not going to stop you from having ill effect if you have shift work. If you're working and your shift is from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., your whole sleep cycle is off.
Yeah, that
And
was
there's-
staggering. Your sleep sleep cycle and shift worker
Yeah,
talk.
the
But,
shift worker
we're about to
is-
go to break, so we'll talk about
Sure.
that when we get back, because that was fascinating.
Aloha, my name is PJ and I'm the host of Hawaii Sports Update. I am very interested in local sports and that's why I host the Hawaii Sports Update show. I bring in guests from Hawaii, I bring in guests from UH, I bring in guests from the community, I bring in big names, I bring in small names, I bring in all names that are community related and doing positive things, sports related in the community. Come join me every Tuesday at 1 p.m. here on Hawaii Sports Update. You can also join me on my golf tournament, the first annual PJ Sports Radio Show golf tournament. It's going to be held at Coral Creek. For any information, go to ThinkTech Hawaii, INC, and friend us. The PayPal and a summary of the event will be right there available for you. And don't forget to tweet us.
All right, we're here with Brandon Hayashi, and we're talking about these glasses. I know that, who provided these?
Yeah, so my company, I gotta really give a shout out and thanks to OpTerra Energy Services.
Okay.
So they were kind enough to actually pay for all the glasses so that we could have them put
Oh.
under one out of every 3 or 4 people's chairs.
That's great. That's great. But you were saying that, who was the company also that did this, that prepared these, or that made these glasses? It doesn't even matter. Any
Yeah,
sort
there are
of,
a lot of...
what you want to look for is the wraparound on the sides and the top, and
Yeah. So, I think we're around the same age. I'm not going to ask what year you
Okay.
graduated.
Yeah.
But I think you might recall when we were probably, I don't know, in high school or college, when you stay up late, you see all those infomercials and everything. I remember there was like these blue blockers.
Yeah,
Right? And this guy was like
exactly.
beatboxing, right?
Right.
Had them on. How's it for you, sir? Oh, it's great. I'm at the beach using it.
Right.
And essentially, that's a blue blocker. That's what this is. Except this one wraps around. That was just like shades, right? Those are
Right.
just sunglasses. But yeah, it's the same old, simple technology.
Great.
Yeah.
So, what were we talking about before we broke? I wanted to get back into the circadian rhythms, the research behind these, maybe the efficacy of using this and blocking your light at night, and the screen time. That's what it was. The shift workers.
Right.
Yeah, and how so many, everyone knows a shift worker.
Everybody does.
Yeah, and how that in and of itself can throw off our rhythms.
Yeah, so the World Health Organization, I believe it was in 2007, actually formally came out and said that shift work is a probable carcinogen, which
Crazy.
is, it's staggering when you think about it. I mean, there's so many things that we believe, or at least we have some research that shows it could be a possible carcinogen, but you wouldn't think it's just when you sleep or when you are awake and working. But again, it comes back to our circadian rhythms and when we are, as a species evolved in our environment, meant to be sleeping and meant to be awake. We're not nocturnal animals, and yet we have probably across the world millions of people who are working exactly when we're not supposed to be. They're working at shifts that are starting in the middle of the night. So all they know is in their wake hours, all they know is darkness, and in their sleep hours, they're trying to block out the light, black curtains and everything like that. So you have some people who exist for years with rarely seeing a whole lot of sun, except maybe on those 1 or 2 days a week that they don't have work.
Right.
I remember when I lived in Japan that you would have people that essentially lived and worked almost their entire life underground, because you have all these subway stations that have restaurants and all these things. So you would hardly ever see natural daylight. So they start a shift, they work, say at a restaurant, a bookstore, whatever have you, that's underground. Maybe if you go for a smoke break or just some kind of lunch break or something like that, you'll come out and see the day. But otherwise, you're underground. So even for those who work during the light hours, sometimes you don't get natural light, right? So it's our developed world and where we're going with our 24/7 society. Again, lots of benefits, entertainment, all these other kinds of things, right? Opportunities to learn through the internet and everything, but there are definitely detrimental impacts as well. It's all about balance, again, about
Right.
choices.
So how can we balance? What are some pointers that you can give us besides these, which is a really great suggestion, but what are some other things that we can do?
Yeah. So I think that's the challenge, right? Is that we live in a really, again, at least in the developed world, a really technology-driven society. From TVs to electronic artificial light to all our devices, handheld devices and so forth, and it's all emitting light. As LEDs, light emitting diodes, become more and more commonplace, they're cheap, or getting cheaper, right? They get out really good light, and they're small. So that's all your backlight on your TVs, on your tablets, on your smart cell phone and everything. So this is fundamentally a part of the problem. So we have to mitigate the very thing that is causing the problem, right? So you have filters. So specifically on technological solutions, again, with your devices, I would say, for example, on your cell phone, there are apps that you can get that are free, and you can have it so that they come on and off with the sun and when darkness comes on, so that you essentially don't have to think twice. Again, the problem that was your cell phone that was emitting blue light all the time, now only emits blue light during the day when you can use that blue light,
Right.
because the filter is automatically timed to your zone in the world, and it comes on when the sun sets. So things like that. Again, inherent in the problem is a potential solution.
Right.
So there's things like that that you can really, really use. And again, from a low-tech perspective, it's our choices. You don't have to. I don't know what the statistic is, but I think it's something on the neighborhood of 3 to 5 hours is what your average child or adult watches TV every day. Those are our choices, right? And we can choose to not do that. You know, we can choose, for example, if you're in the gym at night working out, you can choose to run on a treadmill in a gym that is full of LEDs, right? Or you can choose to run at night. And you might be on a street that has nothing but these high-pressure sodium orange lights. So the light that you get at night when you're exercising is not what you would get if you're in a gym. So there are ways in which our lifestyles are busy, right? No one has enough time these days. But there are ways in which you can work into your life these kinds of things that are solutions, or at least they'll make you feel better. And again, if it works even from a placebo effect, it works.
Right, exactly. So is there a golden hour or some time that you should shut off your, or have of no blue light before
Right.
you go to bed or something like that to ensure it?
I
for the
think there's a
people at
lot
home?
of, there's a lot of studies and things that say, you should turn off your devices at least an hour or two before you go to bed. And that's, I think, not necessarily grounded in hard science, and I need to do more research in that as well too, because from what I've read, in fact, Dr. Lockley, one of the Harvard professors whose work I've read and actually quoted from a little bit in the TEDx talk, they've run tests where the impact that you have from blue light in exposure of just 12 minutes can sometimes have lasting effects of an hour or more.
Wow.
So if you think you watch an hour of TV at 9 o'clock at night, you could be pushing your circadian rhythm or your 24-hour clock back in that equivalent or greater amount of time. So normal, healthy human adult, your melatonin production normally is gonna kick in around 9 or 10 p.m. That's just your natural cycle. And again, you want and you need the melatonin because that's what really allows your body to get the full rest that it has. You can sleep, i.e. close your eyes, but if you've been caffeinated out, you've been watching TV until 1 a.m. in the morning, don't think you're actually gonna get real sleep.
Right.
After that, it's going to be very challenging for your body to actually get the melatonin to the melatonin receptors all throughout your body to allow your body to get real sleep. And also keep in mind, again, with our bodies, our melatonin levels increase. So again, they start around 9 or 10 p.m. and they increase. And again, in a healthy average adult, you're looking at your peak or your best sleep around 2 a.m. in the morning. And then as the sun rises, your melatonin production actually goes down because then you have the hormones that kick you up into action, right? Like cortisol and everything like that come with the sun. again, light-dark cycles. Our body is already adjusted and evolved to that. So if you've missed that window, the sun rises and you don't have enough melatonin from whatever your caffeine and your light input at the night before,
Right.
that's it. You can't make up that time. So one of the things that Dr. Lockley and others talk about is being essentially in the developed world is being in perpetual jet lag.
Oh yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah,
Because
that's
you
an
can't
interesting
make
concept.
up the time that you've lost. You can make sure that the next night you do better, but once it's gone, right? Sleep is like time. You're never getting it back.
That's so true.
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things.
Well, I would like to know, so for those of us who think that we don't need very much sleep, so is there like, can we shorten that cycle? So like maybe the melatonin, get it to not kick in till like 11 or 12, and then is there
So
any way to
that-
kind of
Yeah,
adjust that at all?
we are, as a species, obviously diverse, physiologically and otherwise, right? So there are studies that show that there are natural tendencies for people that are what are maybe called morning larks versus night owls. So when we actually are at our peak performance, while you have an average for our species, there's obviously diversification within that average. So there are some people, my father being one of them, for example, he's always been a night owl. And that's when he stays up late, gets a lot of work done. He knows his productivity cycle, right? Other people, like I would argue my mother, is more of a morning person, whether she's had a cup of coffee or not. So we have natural tendencies, whether it's DNA driven or just habits. I would argue they're stronger than habits, but things that separate us from another. And those things you got to be mindful of, right? Listen to your body. And when you put these glasses on, start to track, when are you feeling best? Is it if you go to bed at 9 o'clock or you go to bed at 11 o'clock? Are you not feeling tired enough? Even if though you wear these glasses, your natural cycle hasn't kicked in yet. I mean, these are all things that are individualized, and there is no one answer for everyone. You have to track that individually. And then, based upon that, you make choices of how you do things.
Cool. Very interesting. So what is going on with you these days? I know that you do a lot of different things with light, literally and figuratively.
Right, for work, for example. Yeah.
So what are you working on or learning about these days that excites you?
Right, so for work, my company, OpTerra Energy Services, we have a large contract with the Department of Education. The program is called KAHE, and we're essentially retrofitting out 255 schools in a period of 5 years for renewable energy efficiency, of which obviously light is a part of, and a whole slew of other energy conservation and efficiency measures. We're looking at net zero energy campus solutions, which entail energy storage or batteries, as is commonly called. And importantly, what we're delivering as a part of this is the curriculum that ties all of that back into the classroom. So that's what work is.
Right.
And it's
Well,
not, it is and it isn't work, because it totally is in line with what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. And it's all very interrelated, even though
Absolutely.
it seems a little, well, I wish that we could have gotten into that a little more, that it was just such a great time talking to you and learning from you. And again, just going over your TED Talks, I'd highly recommend that you check it out there. And thank you for joining us at ThinkTech High, Behind the Scenes and Beyond the Talk.